Hello everyone, I am Hedgie and this is Saturday, and so we are going to get together and do some cooking today. I've got a kind of diverse menu. Can everybody tell me, is that music too loud? Anyone? Is the music too loud? Maybe down a touch. Okay. I am going to go back to there. Turn it down a little bit. All right. Okay. So, I'm going to be cooking a recipe from my grandmother Twitchell, my father's mother, today. Not so much cooking as just preparing in front of you. Um, it's a side dish and one that we had all summer long. It is a refrigerator pickle made with cucumbers and sweet onions. And that recipe I found while I was looking for other heirloom recipes from my family that we've lost. And I found it referenced in a recipe book that was written in 1898. And it was from a young woman in the Midwest. And basically unchanged since then. So that's kind of interesting. Hey, Glittered Kitten. Nice to see you. How are you doing today? We have got, I'm going to be making caprese salad, which I always thought was an odd name for it because it's sliced striped tomato with mozzarella and fresh basil and some balsamic vinegar with a little bit of salt and pepper. And I am also going to be using some leftover 5 cheese tortellini, and that is going to be made with a beef and mushroom Alfredo sauce. I am doing great today, kitten. We got a little bit of a late start today, so that's kind of reflected a bit. I am going to, hold on a second, I need to test the pasta. Perfect, honey. This is the tortellini. I don't think it's very entertaining to watch people boil pasta, so this is a fresh tortellini that was made. Hi, Jack of the Lost, how are you doing? Hey, Long Dark, hey, nice to see you. I'll start over again. I am making today I've already made a 5 cheese tortellini. This is a leftover half recipe. And I am going to be making a beef and mushroom Alfredo to go on top of that. I am going to be making some cucumber and sweet onion half pickles. Basically, they are a refrigerator pickle, and they're only given a very light pickle. I'm also going to be making a caprese salad. Excuse me. This is the tortellini I'm talking about. It has 5 cheeses in it. Some people might have chosen to use ricotta, but I don't like the fact that doesn't melt very well. So I used, excuse me. Excuse me. I used cottage cheese in it because it does melt. I used some cream cheese, I used mozzarella, I used Parmesan, and let's see, Gruyere. So it's an interesting little mix. If you wanted to add different cheeses in there, definitely feel free. Smoked Gouda might be interesting. Anyway, this is the tortellini, and that will get made with the Alfredo sauce. To start out, this is an English cucumber, and my grandmother used to call them burpless cucumbers. I have no idea why. I have never in my life burped with a regular cucumber. You see them come this way. They are wrapped in plastic, and they shouldn't have much in the way of flex when you pick them. They should feel firm. Flexible vegetables are old vegetables. English cucumbers have a much thinner rind to them, and they also don't have that bitter taste that's associated with regular cucumbers. And they have much smaller seeds, so they have, it's described as a sweeter taste. I just find it much milder of a flavor than your standard cucumber that you can get like 3 for $1 in the grocery store. These are more expensive, but they are totally worth it. Uses for this refrigerator pickle. We used to eat them on the side of most of our meals, dinners and lunches during the summers. My grandmother actually grew these cucumbers, and she would use the local sweet onion from around here called a Walla Walla Sweet. I don't know if they sell them outside of Washington State, but we are terribly proud of them because they are fabulous. And you can use these cucumbers, these pickles, you can use them on the side just as a vegetable, which is what we usually did. They also go really good in sandwiches after they're pickled. And so to do this, I just make, small discs. And you don't want to go too thin because they do need to stand up to the pickling process. And these don't have any dill in them. They're basically salt and pepper, and we use apple cider vinegar, and that's picked for the flavor. You could, use a wine vinegar if you want to. I don't recommend you use a white vinegar because it's just really harsh for this application. The apple cider vinegar has a nice fruitiness it brings to it, and it's still very sour, which is kind of the point. These will last in a refrigerator in the brine that you make for it for 3 or 4 days before they start getting overly pickled. We generally didn't have that trouble. We would make them the night before, or we would make them about an hour before and eat them that night, and then have them for lunch the next day if there was any left over, and then have to make it again fresh. And we never really ran out of the cucumbers and onions because Grandma bought the onions in the 10-pound bag and showed us how to put them up to keep so that they didn't go bad. And it's a very strange process that involved pantyhose. You take a clean, washed pair of pantyhose, never been worn, and you put a onion down the leg of it, down to the foot, and then you tie a knot. And then put the next one, tie a knot. You see where this is going. You fill up your pantyhose with these onions, and when you need one, you just cut off the one at the end. And then you could hang these in a closet so that they wouldn't get contact bruises, and they would stay drier. Of course, this was in eastern Washington, which is a very arid climate anyway. But I always thought it was just hysterically funny whenever she would do these because Grandma never wore dresses. She never wore pantyhose, so if she was buying it, it was for the onions. All right, so now I've got this cucumber and a very stylish plastic container, and I'm just going to put those in there. And as you can see, they don't really have much in the way of seeds. I'm going to get that closer to the camera if I can. So you can see it's got very little seeds versus a regular cucumber. If you choose to use a regular cucumber, you certainly can. I would peel them because the rind of a regular cucumber is kind of thick and waxy, and it does have a definite bitterness to it. So I am going to set that aside now while I process the onion. And the way we did these is we did them in rings, made for a pretty presentation. That's going to be an odd looking onion. Honey, could you bring me a different onion? This one's kind of odd looking inside. Yeah, it's got discoloration inside. I mean, chances are you could probably take that. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it. There's like this ring of odd yellow in here. I don't really want to go into it in cooking stream. So anyway, here's another sweet onion. And we always cut these into rings and separated them out just because, well, it was pretty. And you could cut them into smaller pieces if you wanted. I wouldn't dice it because you're not putting the onion in there to be you're not putting the onion in there to be a seasoning. The onion is part of what you're eating here. And you could do this with a regular onion too. It's just, well, we're in Washington State, and generally for an eating onion, something that you would eat on its own instead of, you know, part of a hamburger or put into a ingredient. The Walla Walla Sweet is generally what people eat. It's just a much milder onion, and yeah, it is actually a sweet onion. It's not horrendously sweet, but it is definitely noticeable. They're watered a lot, which makes for a much milder onion, and it doesn't have that bite that regular onions have, and it is just a really nice. People can eat these like apples. They are that mild. They are that sweet. It is really a nice onion. I use them by preference for most of my onion applications. They are slippery though. I'm gonna cut it in half so it cuts easier. Well, thank you for the follow, Cat's Paw. It's just a really nice onion. We use these all the time. Hey, the only deaf guy, thank you for the host. That would be Connor, for those of you who know him. Can we get a shout out for Connor, please? Connor is a wildly talented British chef who's young. He owns an interest in a cafe with his uncle and his father, and he cooks 6 days a week for you, and Katie! Oh, that's my niece Katie. Hi Katie, how are you doing? This is my oldest brother's daughter Katie, Cat's Paw, and I am so happy to see you here. She's my oldest niece, and I I had the opportunity to live with my oldest brother for a few years while she was growing up. And she's had the opportunity to have my cooking with her father many times. um, I am really surprised to see her here today, actually. Anyway, she is an amazing young woman. She is an artist. She does painting, and she does photography, which is absolutely amazing. Not that I'm proud of her or anything, but yeah, I'm just so glad to see you here, Katie. Um, I am making, for those of you who have come in lately, I am making right now, this is a recipe that came over, it's been in my family for generations on the Twitchell side. It's my father's side. And I found it referenced in a recipe book I found online that was written in 1898. So this is a pretty old recipe, and it's onions and cucumbers. It's a refrigerator pickle. There's all kinds of pickles. A sour pickle is a fermented pickle that may or may not have dill in it. Then there are dill pickles. There are gherkins, which are made with basically tiny little pickles. And although in England, they use the term a gherkin pickle to mean any pickled cucumber. And it's a different one here. They're usually very small pickles, either dill or sweet pickles. And then of course you have the sweet pickle, bread and butter pickles, regular sweet pickles. This is just made with water, salt and pepper, and apple cider vinegar, and then usually refrigerated, but it just needs to sit for about an hour, so it's a very mild pickle on this. And then you can use these for either a side vegetable. You can put it in salads. It's very tasty there. You can use it in sandwiches. That's awfully tasty too, if it lasts that long. It doesn't have dill in it. You could put dill in it, but this isn't the way my family eats it. This is exactly how we eat it, just with salt and pepper. And every summer that I grew up, we always had these, and it was, Grandma would buy the Walla Walla onions, and then we would get cucumbers from her garden, and just the vegetables flowed, shall we say. Alright, so to this we're going to add about and this is just one sweet onion and one cucumber, very small batch. Usually it was a couple cucumbers and a couple onions in a great big bowl, but it was a large family. I've got about half a teaspoon here of salt, and alright, here's some white pepper, and that's about a quarter teaspoon. And then you want to use about wow, that's really screwed on there. Apple cider vinegar, as I said, it's a slightly sweet, milder vinegar. I think it lends better to this. I wouldn't use white vinegar at all for this. It's just too harsh. You want to use between a quarter and a half cup. And I am putting about half a cup. Yeah, about half a cup. And then you want to fill it with water to cover. And then you just set it aside, and it does its magic starting to pickle this. And like I said, it is a mild pickle, and it's not a hot one. Normally, if you were going to make a dill pickle, you would take and make a hot brine, you'd put the pickles that you prepared, the cucumbers, into a jar, and you'd pour the hot brine over them and then actually can them. A refrigerator pickle like this is a pickle that is just processed in the refrigerator. Okay, so now that I've got this here, I am going to cover it and let it do its thing. So I've got that off to the side there. And next up is the caprese salad. Sorry, I had to take a drink there. This is probably one of the largest Roma tomatoes I have ever seen. It is also called a plum tomato, and it is a tomato you can find all year long in the grocery store, and it will actually have a chance of being ripe. So these are also really good for cooking with. Now, as always, my recipes are in my Discord under Stream Recipes, and well, it will be after stream. I actually forgot to put it up today. So, as you can see, these have a lot of flesh, which is really what you want in something you're going to be eating. Grandma's tomatoes that we used were vine ripened beefsteak tomatoes, and a type called an early girl, which was basically just another kind of beefsteak tomato. Caprese salad is very easy to put together. It is basically a sliced ripe tomato. You want to make sure it's ripe because, well, who wants to eat an unripe tomato? And it is a very simple little process. You take your nice ripe tomato and you array them on a plate like yay. And I'm going to put that off to the side because there's nothing wrong with that except it doesn't fit on the plate. And the next thing you want to have is mozzarella cheese. So I've got some mozzarella cheese here. I had pre-sliced before, but it gave us very thin slices of mozzarella cheese for my grilled cheese three-way. That is still my favorite grilled cheese sandwich I made that day, was the caprese grilled cheese. But I kind of like to have a sizable chunk of cheese, and so I'm going to. I have got, you can use fresh mozzarella is lovely for this, whole milk or part skim, whatever it is, it's your choice. And this is probably between 1/8 and 1/4 of an inch slice. Buffalo mozzarella. Fresh mozzarella is absolutely gorgeous for this, but I didn't like my options that I had when I was at the grocery store. And I don't have a lot of faith in my personal shoppers that have been going there lately. Just as a warning, folks, when they went to the store for me, I thought I was getting ahead of things by getting a shopper to go out and buy my Thanksgiving turkey a week in advance. They were down to 2 turkeys. 2. Apparently there's a turkey shortage. I can't imagine how there's a turkey shortage, but there is. So you have your ripe tomato. You want to add just a pinch, and yeah, here's my salt container. Shaker? No. You just want to add a little pinch of salt, and I'm going to add some white pepper to this as well, just because I have it here. And then I would normally use a fresh basil leaf, but been having some trouble with spoilage. The ones that I've seen in the grocery stores don't look good. This is the cheese. And so I found a tube of chopped fresh basil, and it stays very fresh in this, which is nice. You don't have, if you have a live basil plant, that's wonderful. Um, it would be great to be able to do that. I don't have the space for it, and nor do I have the light for it because, well, the apartments these days make you live like a mushroom. There's no windows except in the bedrooms. So here's your basil paste, and it's just chopped fresh basil. And put that on there. You can try to do it a little more attractively than that, which I'm going to try to here. And so we've got the basil. And you could put it anywhere you want. I would normally, if it was a fresh basil leaf, definitely put it on top, which is why it's here. Plus it also makes it obvious that I've got something on this. And it wasn't obvious on my grilled cheese sandwiches. Then you want to take balsamic vinegar. I don't use a balsamic vinaigrette. Hey Black Wolf, how are you doing? You don't want to use a balsamic vinaigrette because that adds extra things to it. And caprese salad is very simple. So you just want to add, ooh, that's a bit much, just a drizzle to it. And then a touch of olive oil. And I will try to be much less prolific with that. So I have got a little bit of olive oil here in a cap, and it's just a slight drizzle. You're basically making your own dressing for it, but again, it's a very, very simple dressing. And that's it for caprese salad. It's a lovely thing to eat during the summertime when the tomatoes are ripe. If you're going to be using a fresh tomato from your garden or your patio, that's very popular these days too. And it's just a nice light starter or accompaniment, another way to get some nice vegetables in. And it's a very nice way to start a meal. Balsamic vinegar, if you're not familiar with it, is a thicker vinegar, and it is, although it still has the sour aspects to it, it also has some sweet, and it is absolutely outstanding for bringing out the flavor of tomatoes or strawberries, oddly enough. And that is dish number 2. All right, now we come down to the fun part. We're going to start working on our roast beef and mushroom Alfredo sauce by cooking the roast beef. I need to reach it. Oh, that's heavy. Okay. Let's talk mushrooms. The mushrooms have different flavors. You can use a white button mushroom. They're a little bit cheaper than the mushrooms I choose to use with beef, but they also have a very mild mushroom flavor. I choose to use a cremini mushroom, which is also called a baby bella because uh, it is a baby bella. It's the same mushroom. It is just in a different life stage. And I have got a beef cross rib roast, courtesy of my cousin Tara and her cow, who gave its all. Hey, Waffle Mouse, welcome in today. How are you doing? So, this is one of the cows from the farm that she had, and it gave its all, and we are grateful to it because it is delicious. Um, a cross rib roast is part of the arm of a cow. It is part of the chuck roast area. And this is usually given to either very quick cooking, which is kind of what we're doing here, or really long cooking. For instance, if you were going to make a pot roast, this is a good option for that. It's going to get very, very tender when it is cooked low and slow. And by that I mean a low temperature, around 325 for hours. Alright, so it's a nice roast here. It's generally bound because it's not always a pretty shape. And I am going to, yeah, see, it just basically comes apart. It is rolled. So I'm going to take this first bit and I'm going to start cutting it up. It does have more sinew in it than some roasts. You could use stew meat for this. Nothing wrong with using a stew meat. It's already cut up. You could use steak. You could use round steak. That is also one that generally has to be cooked longer in order to be tender. Or, once again, very, very quickly. As a little announcement, today's stream is the one that will satisfy the last of my requirements to become an affiliate. So, thank you all for showing up for this. That's going to be amazing. And I really thank you all for all your support along the way. I keep these in larger pieces. Once again, you could make them smaller, you could make them larger. I choose larger because, well, the carnivores in the family, my husband and my father, they want to have meat that they can just pick up and chew and know that what they're actually having is a meat dish and not a pasta dish. Although my husband is a lot more forgiving of pasta dishes than my father, who thinks pasta, unless it's spaghetti or lasagna, belongs as a side dish. So I'm just cutting these up into relatively uniform sizes so that they cook reasonably close to each other. And once again, when you're getting your meat, you want to make sure that the meat is an appealing color. It shouldn't be green. Shouldn't have a strange sheen to it, which usually means it's one of your indications that your meat is rotting. It should have a clean blood scent to it. If it smells off, don't use it. Food poisoning is not worth it. As you can see, the outside is a slightly different color than the inside, but that's normal because the inside isn't oxidized and the outside is. And you want to make sure that it doesn't have any spots that look strange or a slimy texture, and you'll know what I mean if you ever come across it. It's not like the usual wetness of a raw meat, but it's a nasty rotting thing. And one of the things that you'll know about rotting meat, that is one of the nastiest scents in the entire world. I'm going to clean up a little bit of the sinew in here. Get rid of it because we don't want that. It'll be, well, you won't be able to chew through that. If it was cooked for a very long time, you would be able to, but not in this application. So I'm going to just cut it out. And that goes for the dog, who will be very, very happy that he gets it. Cooking is about all of your senses, so please use them. I'm sure LD, who is a professional chef, will say the same thing. When he's cooking with something, he's constantly checking it. I mean, he's checking for the flavor to make sure the flavor's okay. That's why chefs taste their food. Got to make sure that it's seasoned correctly, that it tastes like it's supposed to. Generally, by the time they get a hold of it, that means generally that it's seasoned correctly and is cooked correctly, versus whether or not it's actually in good cooking shape. But it's one of the many checks that chefs and cooks go through as they're cooking your food for you in a restaurant, to make sure what you get is in good shape. So you don't want to eat bad food, and a chef that cares about the food they put out wants to make sure you have the best meal you can possibly have. They want it to taste good, they want it to satisfy. They're proud of what they do, and rightfully so. Hey Helen, welcome in. How are you doing today? For those who are joining us now, I am cutting up the beef for a 5 cheese tortellini with a roast beef and mushroom Alfredo sauce. And there's two different kinds of what they call Alfredo, basically. There is the traditional recipe, which is made with milk and cream and butter that is cooked down till it's thickened. And then you add salt and cracked pepper to it, and you add Parmesan cheese. And that's it. That is the original recipe for it. I am going to make one that's really more of a Parmesan cheese sauce, because I'm going to use a roux to thicken it. And that's another option too. That's generally what you see when home cooks make an Alfredo. This is a really lightly seasoned dish. It's relying on the quality of the meat. It's relying on the quality of the cheese. And the ingredients have to speak for themselves. There's not really anywhere to hide in this recipe. If you use bad meat, if you use low quality ingredients, it's gonna show. It'll be reflected in the taste, and that's never something you want to serve. So a lot of people think that the best kinds of foods tend to come with all kinds of fanciness, and that's just not true. The highest quality foods you can get are the most simple, because they don't hide behind sauces, they don't hide behind seasonings. It's the quality of the meat, the quality of the vegetables, the quality of the fruit. That's what is actually making the flavor of the dish. There's a city on the coast that is both flooding and on fire. That's what coast is that? Is that up in Canada? Yeah, it's in BC. Okay. Well, that's uncomfortably close for us. We live on the coast of Washington. We're actually beneath and off to the side of Seattle, but that's only a couple hours from British Columbia. So it's kind of disturbing. We have had a lot of um, rain lately, but yeah, it is possible to get the combination of the two. Hopefully that'll keep it from getting out of control, the fact that we've had this much water. And I'm going to get my bloody cutting board out of the way, and then I am going to wash my hands really quickly, but thoroughly. After you handle raw meat, obviously, wash your hands. And you don't want to use that knife again until it's had a wash either. Uh, now, I have got, like I said, uh, these cremini mushrooms, and I bought them pre-sliced because I am that lazy at this moment. Also, they looked better than the whole mushrooms. And now I am bringing in one of my favorite things to cook with. Where did it go? Uh-oh. There it is. I know my husband loves it when I say uh-oh during stream. Uh, it's my electric skillet. It has a ceramic coat inside. It cooks nice and evenly. And it's just a really good option to a stovetop. And since I'm not actually cooking in the kitchen, that is excellent for here. Now, for the taste, I am going to use a little bit of butter. And I do mean a little bit. It's a scant tablespoon of butter, or a pat. And to that I am adding some oil. In this case, it is not olive oil, it's canola. Um, Olive oil is lovely. If you want to use olive oil, by all means. Um, Not what I'm using. Uh, I don't really want to have the flavor of the olive oil added to this. use sage because we ran out of sage in the last show. So I've got some rubbed sage this time, and I absolutely adore sage, so I have a tendency to use more of it, and this is once again about half a teaspoon, and I am just scattering it over everything, and that will cook into the meat and cook into the oil, and that's what we want it to do. I am also going to be adding parsley because I like parsley. It's pretty and it is very tasty, and it is also something that is high in iron, so vitamin K, and so it's good for you too. And I am adding about a teaspoon of this. And once again, you can use fresh parsley. I'm using dried. It just keeps better for me. And then we start sauteing the meat. And letting it do its cooking. When this has been seared on all sides, I am going to add the mushrooms to it to cook. Living in BC and living in the Seattle area and basically Western Washington, you kind of gotta like the rain. If you can foster an enjoyment of it, kitten, that's obviously a good thing to do because we see so much of it. We also have absolutely beautiful sunny days, which we generally don't get credit for, but it's there as well. Is it flooding now, kitten? I know we've been having flood watches in our area, so, and where we are is we're off to the mountainside of Seattle, kind of in the foothills of the Cascade Mountain chain. So we see a lot of rain. We get a lot of snow here too that other areas don't get because of where we are. You could make regular Alfredo to go with this. Just add mushrooms and vegetables if you want. Chicken and mushroom, ouch. Touch the side of the pan there with my hand. That wasn't swift. Chicken and mushroom goes really well with Alfredo sauce. You can serve different kinds of tortellini if you like, or ravioli with it. Of course, there's the obvious fettuccine. When you make the sauce, it's a basic sauce that'll go really good on a lot of different things. And you can customize it in all different kinds of ways. Yeah, don't steer the wrong meat. I'm not cooking Hedgepigs, despite what it is that my title says. There is no cooking of Hedgepigs. You are cooking with me, as in alongside of, or at the same time. That is the name of the cookbook that I have written and finishing writing at this moment. And I was trying to come up with a title that would get people to pick it up. There's billions of cookbooks out there, just billions of them. And unless you're saying something like, you know, the most incredible Chinese recipes or Mexican or Italian or whatever, and the person is looking for that recipe, that kind of cuisine alone, chances are people are not going to cook up my grandmother's recipe. They're not going to pick that up. Um, However, if you can get somebody to say, what the heck is this? And pick it up, and then they open it up and start looking through the recipes, you kind of got them halfway to the till. So, cooking with Hedgepigs, because my nickname is Hedgepig, and you are definitely cooking with me. And it's a way to, get somebody curious about what it is that my cookbook offers that other people's don't. And although there are people that actually eat hedgehogs, um, we won't talk much about them. The way they dispatch the little devils is pretty cruel. Um, like I said, enough said on that. Now this is far enough along that I am going to add in the mushrooms. And these, like I said, are baby bellas. They are little cremini mushrooms, already sliced. Cremini mushrooms go really good with beef. Um, they have a beefy, stronger flavor than, say, a button mushroom, which makes them ideal in this application. And it only takes a few minutes to get the mushrooms to a cooked state. It takes about 10 minutes tops for them to start releasing their liquids. You want a hedge pig, Katie, huh? Yep, Grandma's recipes, Katie. Cat's Paw is my niece, Katie. She is my oldest brother's daughter, and she is joining us today, for which I am thrilled. Ooh, something spat. Um, and it wasn't me. The mushrooms have a large amount of water in them. So when they cook and they release those juices, when they release that water, they shrink by about half size. Um, so you may take a giant mushroom and think you're gonna have, big bites of mushroom, and then you cook it, and all of a sudden you're searching for the mushrooms in what you cooked because they've practically disappeared. um, you need to plan for that in the sizes if you want to have a larger piece of mushroom. Maybe don't quarter it, maybe only half it. Um, Sometimes use them whole. Uh, this is sauteed or roasted mushrooms are absolutely delicious with uh, by themselves or with any kind of meat that you can think of, or in vegetarian applications. I use these cremini mushrooms in my vegetarian chili, which may sound like an odd choice, but they add a beefy flavor to it that it wouldn't have otherwise. Um, Plus, they have nutrients that are good for you, so why not? If you're going to make a vegetarian chili, add all the vegetables you can, which is why mine also has eggplant. One of these days I'll cook it for you guys. Um, I may be the only one that eats it in the house, but it doesn't have tofu in it. It is two different beans and a bunch of different vegetables, and it is a chili that I have served on a construction site in eastern Washington when we had a charity chili cookout and feed. The money went to clothing um, local families for the upcoming winter, buying them coats and warm clothes that they didn't have otherwise. And I served my vegetarian chili, which everybody was very suspicious of. Asked me, this doesn't have tofu in it, does it? I said, no, it just doesn't have meat. And I cooked it at my desk in a crock pot leading up to it, and it filled the whole area with the smell of my chili. And I brought along grated cheese and diced onion and sour cream. And although the meal was not supposed to take place until noon, by 10:30 I had guys, surveyors and such, showing up at my desk asking could they have a bowl. And I started selling my chili early, and they didn't ask any more questions. My chili was the most popular of the 4 that were cooked there, and the others all did have meat. Yeah, portobello mushrooms, baby bellas, they do replace steak. In some dishes you'll see people do a grilled portobello for a hamburger for a vegetarian, for instance. But they do just have a lovely, lovely beef-like flavor that they add. These are getting about halfway there. They're not quite at that point yet. And I am going to be making my Alfredo sauce in this pan with the cooking drippings, because that will really add to the flavor of the Alfredo sauce. So it'll have a darker color to it. It won't be a pure white sauce, and it will have beefy, mushroomy goodness all through it. So, as you can see, the mushrooms have gotten smaller, and they have turned color inside to sort of a beigeish gray, and they are, as we speak, releasing their mushroomy juices into this. And that is exactly what we want. The meat isn't quite done yet, although it doesn't hurt in meat like this to have it medium, so still pink inside. Makes it more tender in this kind of meat, for instance, and you're not running the risk that you would if it was hamburger being pink inside, because the process with hamburger, you're grinding all of the outsides together with the insides, and there's a possibility of contamination anytime you do that. This kind of meat you don't have to worry about, because you're cooking it on all sides, and you can't always guarantee that with hamburgers, so you need to make sure that you cook your hamburger done, or no pink. It's another way to look at that. Which can be a challenge with my husband. I have to give him cooking times since he is colorblind and doesn't see pink. Pink is a color that does not exist for him. It looks gray or white, depending on how intense the pink is. And so I'll tell him things like, you need to cook the chicken 8 minutes on each side to make sure it's cooked. And if it's really thick, if I'm not there, we have a meat thermometer that he can use that'll tell him if it's done. Ouch, I did it again. Does anybody have any questions? I know LD can definitely answer them, being a professional chef. I'm just a home cook, although I've got 43 years of cooking experience. Next month, 44. I am going to have a stream on Tuesday this week, upcoming before Thanksgiving, and I will have a stream on Saturday after, as I am having today. I have moved the time of my Tuesday stream to start at 6 o'clock on Tuesdays. It's when my channel analytics say that I have more people coming in. I may start at 5, but the main bulk of my viewers show up at 6. So I'm going to listen to that and try to do better. Now I'm going to turn the temperature off on this because my mushrooms are done. You can see those lovely big mushrooms suddenly not so big anymore. They've released their liquids. They want nothing to do with me anymore. So I thought I had a scoop here. I guess I will use my spatula. And I have got another one of my absolutely amazing plastic dishes here, just to use as a container to get this out of the way while I make the sauce for this. Now, if you didn't want to have this taste like roast beef, if you didn't want it to, if you were going to make a regular plain Alfredo sauce, yeah, you'd start with a clean pan and not incorporate the flavors. But well, why waste it? I mean, you can see all the nice browned bits here that are in this. That is flavor, my friend. Brown is the flavor. Brown is the color of flavor. And it is absolutely delectable. We brown your meats to not only deepen the flavor of the meats you use in things, but it also seals in the juices. And that's definitely the point. That's why you allow meat to rest, is to allow the juices from cooking to settle back into the muscle fiber, so that if you take a steak, for instance, and you grill it or you fry it or you broil it and you immediately cut into it and it's medium, say, has some pink in it, you're going to get blood running all over your plate. You're going to get, if it's more cooked, you're going to get the juices. Just, they're all going to be on your plate. They're not going to be in the meat. And, hey, Frumpy! You want the juices to stay in the meat so that what you have is a nice, flavorful, juicy piece of meat. And you're not going to get that if you cut it immediately after cooking. So let it rest, 5 or 10 minutes, 15, something like that. It's still going to be hot, but it will also be juicy then. I am getting the last of my mushroom bits and steak out of this. And I'm going to choose a very small piece of meat, or I'll choke on it and see how the flavor tastes. Lovely. The sage is forward in it because this is from the chuck area of the roast. It is, I'm not done with this. The flavor is very, very beefy. Chuck roast, chuck steaks have wonderful taste. The sage is very forward in it because I added a lot to it. And you can taste lightly the rosemary, a little bit of the fresh taste of the parsley. You can taste the butter, which is yummy. And my husband came forward to, oh, I need a new knife, honey. Over there somewhere. He's stealing bits of the meat as his labor cost here, and I'm sure he'll tell you his opinion of it when he gets back. And if anybody's curious, I am drinking iced tea, which grosses my husband out. The only tea he finds. He says tea should be hot. He's so very British at times. don't you tell them your impressions of the meat when you get back to your keyboard, sweetheart? So I am taking and cutting the butter up so that it will melt easier. Faster, I should say. It all melts pretty easy. And he's stolen about 5 pieces so far. Every time he comes over by the table, he grabs another one, coming and going. So I've got some butter in there, and that's going to start melting. You can see it starting to melt into the juices that are there. And this is basically going to make a roux. I'm going to turn this on a low heat, about 200, 220. And that is going to be combined with flour. You've been eating frozen pizza? Oh my God. I'm sorry you outed yourself. Frozen pizzas have their place, but it's so easy to make pizza yourself. I'm going to have a pizza stream where I use a no-knead pizza dough. It just gets mixed together, and then you put it in the refrigerator for an hour because it's already forming glutens at that point, and if you try to roll it out, you're going to get... Yes, but you still have to prepare food, David. It may be your night off. That doesn't mean you get to just completely not cook. Okay. So I've got roughly a little over half a cup of butter in there. And I am going to put roughly a half a cup of flour. You want to keep your fats and your flour in combination, and you want to have them be in balance so that if you use half a cup, you use half a cup. And as I have said, when I make any kind of a white sauce, which basically this is, I use warmed milk because cold milk clumps, warmed milk does not. I am absolutely positive of it. I have never had a sauce clump on me when I used, that's a little warm, that's a little high temperature. I've never had it clump on me when I used warmed milk, and you know, I'm usually whisking frantically during the time if I use cold milk. Hi, Professor. Welcome in. You just had a ham sandwich with Romas and thick-cut bacon. Sounds tasty. Not as tasty as this is going to be, but yeah, it's pretty good. And it's there, so that's the important parts. You want to make sure that the flour cooks here, so you give it a few minutes of cooking time. I'm going to add a little bit of oil to this as well. I've got a little bit of stickage, so I'm going to add some oil. Probably would have been easier to do this in a skillet or a saucepan. But I'm using my grandmother's method whenever she fried anything. If she was going to make a milk gravy or a gravy, she did it in the same container because then you get the yumminess. Okay. Now basically you want to wait a little while when you're doing this because the flour has to cook. You don't want to have a raw flour taste. It won't behave right, and it'll taste, well, floury. That's not something you want to have. If you were to cook this longer, you'd have a deep roux suitable for things like a gumbo, but this, if it wasn't for the roast beef uh, coloring that it's added to it. Um, this would be a light roux, just barely changed in color. And for that, you only want to cook it about 4 to 5 minutes. That's enough to cook the flour, but not to change the flavor to a nutty flavor, which is what the deeper roux taste like. And that's not what we're trying to do here. So, once again, my recipes will be put up under the screen recipe section. I normally have them up ahead of time, but I forgot to do that last night before I went to bed and overslept this morning, so it didn't get done. It will, however, be up there so that you can use the recipes as you like yourself. Hey Vet, welcome in. All is well here. You are arriving just in time to see me start making my Alfredo sauce that is going to go with my 5 cheese tortellini, and beef and mushrooms are going to be added into this Alfredo sauce, and that is going to be really tasty. I have also made refrigerator pickles, and I have made a caprese salad, which is tomato slices with mozzarella, fresh basil, some olive oil, and I did say basil, didn't I? Yeah, olive oil and a little bit of balsamic vinegar. And my refrigerator pickles are onions and English cucumbers in a brine that I made up of apple cider vinegar and water. And I've opened up the container right here, and it smells lovely. I'm going to give one of the cucumbers a taste and see how pickled they are. Not yet. They have started picking up the pickled flavor, which is what I want them to do. They have softened slightly, which is part of the pickling process. And they will be probably ready to eat by the time I'm done with this. All right, so as you can see, this has come along. I can smell the butter and the flour cooking, and I now want to start adding milk to this. And I'm probably going to add about 4 cups of milk. And I'm adding it in from the side here. And you add a little bit in, and then you whisk like mad. And you add some more in. What you don't want to do is give the flour time to clump up. And you definitely don't want to give it time to make nasty lumps. So, anytime you are using a Teflon, you want to use a coated whisk. You never ever want to use metal implements in Teflon, or you won't have Teflon for very long. It will just get nasty. You'll scratch it up, and then it's has to be disposed of. I am busy. Fresh basil, Prof, is a lovely flavor. At some point, I am going to be making my red pasta sauce for everybody, and that has basil and oregano in it, a lot of different spices, and it's just yummy. Um, Fresh tomatoes and all kinds of veggies put in there because every vegetable adds its flavor and it adds its nutrients too. So that's also good. I spilled milk. Not gonna cry over it, but I spilled milk. Trying to pour that in here. So while this is cooking, you want to make sure that you do keep stirring. This, unlike the white sauce or bechamel that I made for my creamy chicken vegetable soup, you don't want this to be very thick. You want it to coat the back of a spoon, and that's about it. And this can go back before it starts going off. The milk's done too. Um, so this is going to cook faster. The most important thing when you're making an Alfredo sauce this way, when you're using a bechamel, don't add the cheese too soon or it kind of clouds the issue. I am just going to use Parmesan cheese in this. You can add additional cheeses to it to make it more cheesy, but an Alfredo sauce is a pretty simple sauce in and of itself. So it is, like I said, the original recipe was butter and cream reduced in a pan with fresh grated Parmesan, salt and pepper, and a little parsley to finish. Doesn't have garlic, doesn't have nutmeg. A lot of things I have seen various different restaurants add to it. And fortunate for me, because I am allergic to garlic, I am not a vampire. My husband accuses me of that every now and then, but I am not a vampire. Not even a vampiric hedgepig.
Yes, you are.
I don't know if you heard him. He said, yes, you are. Well, he might know. I have turned the heat up on this, back up to 220. You don't want to boil your sauce because it can break, it can curdle, and using too high of a heat, it will also thicken far faster than I want it to. You also run the risk of scorching the bottom. And if your sauce gets too thick, it's not the end of the world. Just add more milk to it. Uh-oh. Honey, my screen froze. Sorry, people. A little bit of technical difficulties. My webcam froze. Yep. Okay. Sorry, people. Thank you for your patience there. We had my extremely cheap webcam that we're starting with freeze up. Not ideal. But thank you for your patience. Sorry for the technical difficulties. If you have problems with what you see here, if you have skipping frames or the volume's not loud enough or too loud, just let me know there, and I'm gonna call him my stream technician, my husband, will work to fix that. Cooking at a lower temperature, much safer, a little slower. I can tell that this is starting to thicken, which is good. And when it gets just a little bit thicker now, I will add the Parmesan cheese. And unlike other cheese sauces, you don't want to add a a lot of um, Parmesan, you may add a cup full of another cheese to this. You want to add about half a cup of Parmesan because Parmesan is very salty. It's also a very assertive taste of cheese, and you don't really want to be hit in the face with Parmesan! You want it to have a gentle Parmesan in the cream flavor. Alright, I am stirring with the whisk just to be stirring with the whisk at this point. Um, this is about half the thickness of what I need it to be. And if I were to put a fork in it, because I don't have a spoon, you can see that although it's starting to cling to the fork, it's not anywhere near what you would consider coating it. It's getting there, but it's not yet a sauce. At this point, it is a possible sauce, shall we say. Once again, if anybody wants the recipes I use in Stream, they will be posted in my Discord under Stream Recipes. I have got all of the recipes and pictures of what I cooked in my Discord. I don't have the recipe yet for today up there. I failed. I am such a bad person. I went to sleep last night instead of finishing it. I had it in my head. I did. I was thinking I needed to do that. And then I went to sleep. So, I blame Connor. He's not here. So, this is starting to come together. Although you can't see it, it's starting to get a little milk ring around the top level, which also happens when it starts turning into a sauce. Does anybody have any questions for me? Does anybody have any holiday plans coming up? Are you going to have Thanksgiving? And if you are you going to do turkey, or are you going to go non-traditional and make a roast or a ham, roast a chicken? What are people doing? We managed to get one of the last 2 turkeys in the store that my shopper went to for me. It's a butterball. I was looking just for a turkey breast because I only wanted to make about 5 pounds worth of turkey, but they only had an organic turkey, or this butterball, so I ended up getting a 20-pound turkey. We may be making leftover turkey soup, so we'll see. Okay, this is very rapidly becoming a sauce. It's getting thicker on the back of my fork here, and at this point, since it's about half the thickness I want, I am going to add Parmesan cheese to this, which is what makes it an Alfredo. At this point, it's just a white sauce with mushrooms and roast beef flavor in it. Do I have the cranberry salad recipe? I do have that. I haven't posted it. Okay, well, I can give you the recipe that we generally use. Ooh, prime rib with twice baked potatoes. That sounds delicious, Bet. And that is getting close to half a cup now. And there we go. I am now going to start mixing that in. Turn the temperature down a little bit because I don't want this to boil. Now, if you used a fresh ground mozzarella, or pardon me, Parmesan, it would melt a little bit better than this packaged grated, but this is certainly acceptable. Important thing here is that you continue doing the whisking so that as the cheese melts, it incorporates in with the white sauce rather than hanging out by itself. You want to have a nice smooth sauce which has all of the melted cheese incorporated. If this isn't cheesy enough for you, you could grate in some Gruyere, which is a lovely cheese that combines with an Alfredo type sauce very, very well. And this sauce is now thick enough to coat the back of the spoon or fork. And you can see that here. Definitely a clean area versus what the sauce is. That is what you're looking for. Now, I am going to take this and combine it with my pasta, which, as I said, I didn't really think it was necessary to say take the pasta, put it in the boiling water, this is what it looks like. So we cooked the tortellini pre-stream. Someday I'll show you how to make the pasta as well. And I am going to very gently, because I do not want this to, ouch, go splat. Put the pasta, which is now clinging to itself, into the sauce and try to loosen it up with the sauce. There, it's starting to go. And this will also rewarm it. Ideally, you would be using this fresh and just tipping it in, and we are not doing that this time, just for convenience sake. And this is going to be quite a prolific pasta dish when you're done. Half of the bulk of it is going to be the pasta. The other half of the bulk is going to be all the meat and mushrooms when you add it in here. And I have really got to learn to stay away from the edges. This is an extra deep electric frying pan, and I keep catching my wrist on the side, which is beginning to get a little painful. Let's finish loosening this up and getting it so that they separate out and warm and combine with the Parmesan sauce that I have made. The Alfredo sauce with the beef juices and mushroom juices in it. So that's why it has a funky brown color. I seem to make a lot of brown food. Doesn't photograph very well, but boy does it taste good. I will set you up, Kat. Don't you worry about it. You're going to have a choice of different things you could make. And now at this point, I am now going to add back in the beef and the mushrooms and the juices that have come off of that. And combine this in together. Doesn't that look nice? I have got some grainy Parmesan cheese that hasn't fully melted in this. It's okay, it still tastes good. Little accidents like that are fine. You're not looking at a broken sauce, which is what would happen if the milk solids actually broke in it. That didn't happen. This is the Parmesan. That's what good cooking does, Professor. You know, we ought to run a warning on here. Warning, my recipes may cause sudden and continued hunger. That's the idea. The things that I cook aren't really fancy, but they are very tasty. And what I have here now is a finished 5 cheese tortellini with beef and mushrooms. So I am now going to plate this. I have already got a side plate of my caprese salad. And I am now going to get my display plate. And I am going to put some pasta. And meat on here. Make sure I get everything that's represented. Make the sauce a little bit nicer here. Try to make this a little prettier. So I will take and clean up the edges for picture taking. So here I have got the finished 5 cheese tortellini with beef and mushroom Alfredo sauce. And we have my refrigerator pickles. I am going to move this out of the way because you can't really see what else I'm doing. I will be getting another camera, I promise, people. Hopefully sometime soon. And here is the onion and cucumber refrigerator pickles. And these are coming along quite nicely. I would probably give them another hour, but they're certainly tasty just the way they are. I'm going to get out a cucumber to munch. Still nice and crunchy. You can taste the apple cider vinegar. How's that taste, honey?
Meat is lovely, well done. Cheese is nice, so counterpoint to every all 5 cheeses as well.
He says the cheese inside the tortellini is, you can taste all the different cheeses. It's nice and creamy and melty. The roast beef is done well. The mushrooms are in there, cheesy, creamy sauce. And I'm going to try one of the onions now. Oh, that is just so good. You can taste the pickle. He's taunting you now. Can I have another plate? Do we have one? You can taste the sweetness of the onion because it was a sweet onion. You can taste the pickle, which was absolutely lovely. The little bit of bite of the vinegar and the little bit of salt from the brine, and it's a lovely fresh pickledy flavor, and it will help cut through the richness of the Parmesan sauce, the Alfredo on it. So I've got a little bit of that here. And I am going to take and put the lid on that so it doesn't spill. I've got that plate down here. And I am going to take one of the tomatoes, which I flipped, of course I did. Alright, I'm going to go for a prettier one, since I don't want to have one that's flipped. Then we're going to have a little bit of the caprese salad. And I am going to add the beef and mushroom tortellini to this. You never know that I'm about 90% vegetarian. Times like this, don't feel it. I want some beef. So, now I have got the completed meal. I have got the refrigerator pickles here of the cucumbers and sweet onions pickled with salt, a little bit of pepper, apple cider vinegar and water. And this is the caprese salad with a nice ripe Roma tomato, olive oil and basil, some balsamic vinegar, and the mozzarella cheese. And then we have the 5 cheese tortellini with cut up and sauteed cross rib roasts and baby bella mushrooms. And this is the meal. You'll see a lovely picture of this later. I want to thank everybody that's come. I want to thank my mods for their continued faithfulness and dedication to coming to my streams and making sure nothing untoward happens. I want to thank each and every one of the people who've come to stream, have supported me, encouraged me to do the cooking streaming, and I want to thank you all and join me again. We are coming, this will make me an affiliate. So we have more things coming in the future, including some gorgeous gorgeous emotes and artwork from Glittered Kitten, who is making that for me. So all props to that upcoming. I will begin having stream redeems, and let's see. Why don't we raid, let's see, who else is on? I see Waybread and I see the Burger Guys. Let's go check out the Burger Guys. They should be in the middle of dinner. So we're going to go raid the Burger Guys, fellas. They are a small startup restaurant in West Virginia, and it's a set of cousins that have opened up their own restaurant, and they're making burgers the right way. Once again, thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. I look forward to cooking holiday recipes with you and showing you what to do with your holiday leftovers. And we'll see you next time. That will be Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. You'll find the recipes on my Discord, and you'll find pictures as well. So ask any questions, put anything you want in your own recipe shares. And let's go do some raids. Thank you all for coming.